let me write it down here. What we have learned is, let's say if you have a very simple data, I mean, let's say, which you want to capture, let's say a single column, right? Single column of information, let's say name, right? And then you can have all the items. All the items here are of string type, right? Of string type. So if I want to store it in a list, you know what the syntax of it. You will simply do list string. You will get its names equals to new hash list. Sorry, hash list, array list, and then you will provide the string here, and that's it, right? What if I told you that okay, you do not have to work on single column, you need to work on a table like this, which will have, let's say, 4 columns. Let's say in the first case, let's assume that every column is accepting only string values. Okay, so let's say this is the name, this is the address, this is the let's say the father name, right? And let's say it is about your let's say what gender, okay, the complete form, male, female, right? So let's say that you have entries here, right? And you have multiple rows, right? If I ask you, can you please store it into a list? How will you do it? All the 4 columns are of string type, right? So one is this question that we have to answer. Second question is, let's say I have another table where the data type would be different, right? It could be anything. Let's say I have a name column which would be of string type. We would have a boolean value of a boolean column, and let's say let's say is Indian, right? Let's say, so you have to write true or false here, right? True and false. And then similarly you will have in kind of a value where you can specify, let's say, age. So you can understand, right? String, boolean, in it could be anything, right? It could be anything. Now let's say I will ask you, okay, there are multiple entries here, now store it in a list. How will you do it, right? So this is the question, this is the problem for which we have to find a solution. Okay, and this is where we will go in. Okay, so again we will do it for list and we will do it for map. For sets it would be a similar thing, right? And we will talk about it. Okay, but before doing any of this, right, the first thing which I have to do is we need to understand about 3 concepts, which are boxing, another is unboxing, third is your auto boxing. What are these? Okay, now Ashok, tell me, we discussed this, right? If you create collections, what kind of, I mean, what kind of things you can hold in a collection?
Collection of elements, be it like similar or different types of. When I
Right.
say different types of elements, I think we can start using object instead of specific data type. For
Okay.
example, if we want to use a list of string collection, then we can use data type as string. If we have a combination of string, int,
Hmm.
float, and any other, we can use object there.
Okay. If you have to store int, what will you do there?
Integer is a wrapper class that we
Right.
can use it there.
And why would you use that and not int?
I think because
Hmm.
that won't accept. I think that's the reason developers have come up with these wrapper classes, which will handle
Hmm.
ints in the form of integer, and yeah, char is also handled in the form of character as a wrapper class that they have developed.
Right. See, the main point here is that the collections can only collect objects. They cannot collect anything apart from objects. And
Right.
your primitive data types, int,
Yes.
char, boolean, and all of this, right, are known objects, right? These are not objects. But everything else in Java is an object, right? We is a class. You will find a class or an object of it. You can do all of this. So you have to understand the collections, right? If you talk about collection framework, any of the collection you use, right, it only accepts objects. Okay, it does not accept your primitive data types. and we talked about it that okay, so this is accepted, this is not accepted, and we talked about this that in case of collections, right, there would be a need that you would require to store these kind of values also. It could be a int, float, right, byte, boolean, char, right? All of these are still required somehow, right? But in the context of collections, as per the rules of collection, these you cannot put in the collection. So the developers of Java, right, they came up with a solution. They said, okay, let us do one thing. Let us create some classes. Like for int, they created integer class. For float, they created float. For byte, they created byte, right, and so on. For all the 9, 10 primitive types, whatever we have, they created a relevant classes for them. Okay, so these are classes. Now, since these are classes, now you can create an object of it, and now because these are objects, you can insert them in the collection, right? So what is happening here? If you write here int, let's say I equals to 5. I is a primitive data type, right? It's an int. It's not integer as of now. It's an int value. So it's a primitive data type. It's not an object. If you convert your primitive data type into an object, this is called as boxing. Okay, it's like that you had a primitive data type and you place them into a box, and this box is something like which represents the object. That's why the name is boxing. You're putting something in a box. Okay, it's like a wrapper on top of your primitive data type, right? So, but if you would open it up, what you will find? You will find a primitive data type inside it. Okay, and this object here, right, would be relevant to whatever data type you had. So you wanted to have int here, so you will use the wrapper of integer. Okay, if you had char c equals to, let's say, c, you will have this wrapper would be of what of class? Character class. Okay, and this is called as boxing. Now the opposite of it, let's say you have these objects, right, these objects, and you wanted to move back to primitive data types, right? Then this is called as unboxing. You are moving the item out of that box, like you do unboxing, right, of your product site, which whatever you receive from Amazon or somewhere. So that's the how it is, right? 5 and c, you will get 5 and c here, and these are like your primitive data types. How to do it, we'll talk about it. How to do boxing, we'll talk about it. But you have to understand what is boxing. You are placing your primitive data type into a wrapper, which will represent like they will they will act like the objects now, and this is called as boxing. And if you remove them out, right, they are called as primitive data types. Oh, sorry, unboxing, right? Now, what is auto boxing? Auto boxing is boxing, but happening automatically. So here also the same thing will happen. Your primitive data type would be boxed into a object. This will happen. But here, auto box in case of auto boxing, it happens automatically. That is the only part. Okay. So boxing and auto boxing achieve the same thing, but here this is something which you can manually trigger yourself, and this is something which will automatically happen. How this all happens, we are going to now understand all this. Okay. Okay. Let's share it on the here. And what I'll do is I have a util demo collection demo. Minimize is not provided. Now let me create another class. Let's say, and I will term it as wrapper demo. Okay, wrapper demo, and let me create a class. And over here, I will create our magic method main. And inside this, let's create our first integer data type. Let's say int I equals to 5. Okay. Now, if I have to do boxing, I will need to put this integer, this primitive data type into an object. How will I do it? I will simply use the relevant class, right, which can box it. It's not that correct. You will start using character or something else. The class has to be something which can box it in. So the relevant class is what? Integer class. So you will say integer. Okay, integer. Let's say well here, right? Well one equals to new integer, and you will do what? You will place here this I. Okay, integer. Did I? Okay, now they have changed that thing. Okay, constructs are newly allocated integer object it represents. Okay, what it is saying is they have deprecated this use. Okay, it is really appropriate to use this constructor. This theory of this better choice. Integer value of. Okay, let me do one thing. Let me first downgrade this. Otherwise, you will not understand. What I should do is this is Java 8 only, right? So why it would complain here? It got deprecated. Okay, it got there, and I'm still saying it is deprecated. Okay, okay. Mm, integer dot value of I. Okay. Earlier, what you could do is you could use like this thing, right? Which I was writing. Integer val 2, let's say, equals to new integer. You could do something like this. You could just directly provide the value here, let's say I, right? And this would do what? This would put your data type into a box of what type? Integer type. Okay. But now they are saying that they have removed the support of it, and this has been deprecated. It has been deprecated from since Java 9. Okay. And now constructs a newly allocated integer object that represents the specified int value. So they're saying instead of doing this, use a static method coming from the integer class, and this will do the same thing. So let's follow that rule. So what we'll do is we are able to box our value, right? This data type, prim data type, into a object here. Okay. Now, similarly, let's say for the character, uh, character, let's say ch1 equals to. Can we do for character also? This is also deprecated. Let's see. If I put here C, it is also deprecated, I believe. Yes, deprecated. And what it is suggesting again value of, right? So let's do this only. Okay. So what I'll do is character dot value of C, right? Similarly, you could do it for any other thing, right? If you wanted to do for a float, let's see how does the float works. Float, right? Float, and let's give it a name as float one equals to float dot value of, and we will provide the value as 34.56f. Okay, right? And similarly, you can do it for all the other data types, right? This is what we are doing. We're trying to create we're trying to put your primitive data type into a object, right? Okay. How to do an unboxing? So now you boxed it, right? How will you do an unboxing? You will say in unboxing, you already have the object. What are those objects? Now, well one is an object, right? It's an object for this thing, right? Okay. Now you wanted to retrieve the value of your primitive data type from it. Let me create int, let's say response one equals to well one, because that is what it represents. You will say dot, and you will say int value, and this will return you the remove unboxing. Okay, it is saying returns the value of this integer as an int. Okay, just ignore this part, unnecessary unboxing, right? Because it is saying this because you could just directly specify the value, but leave that part. Remove unboxing, more actions, into value, returns the value of this specified by into value in this. Okay. Okay. Let's say about the character part. I wanted to hold into my character, let's say response 2. So what I'll do is this is ch1. Okay. ch1 dot uh, char value. Okay, right? This is you're getting. Let's say about float. Float response 3. What you will see is float 1 dot. You can see float value. Okay. So again, depending on which method, which object, from which object you want to unbox it, you will have to use the relevant method inside it. Okay. But this is how the unboxing is happening. You can extract, you can remove the box around that primitive data type, and this is how you do it. Right. Now the last part, which is auto boxing. In case of auto boxing, what happens is we are still doing boxing only, right? This is boxing, but automatically, right? Automatic boxing. How it works is, what you can simply do is, you earlier what we were doing, we were saying integer val1 equals to integer dot value of, right? This is how you were doing it. But what you could also do is this thing. Let me give it some other name. Uh, into one, let's say, and then I will say just simply 5. This is auto boxing. Why it is auto boxing? Because here I am not doing the conversion. I am just directly providing the value, right? I am directly providing the primitive data type to this object, and this way, right, it will still create the instance of this integer object, right, and assign the value 5. So this is same as this, but you can understand, like, why this is called auto boxing. This is called auto boxing because internally the Java compiler will do this operation only for you, right? But as a user you don't have to do it. So for you it becomes an auto boxing, right? Here automatically you just provide data type. Okay, you just provide the value to it, and it will automatically convert this into an object. Okay, and try to understand what easiness it is providing you, right? Your collections cannot work on primitive data types, but they can work on objects only, right? And the Java developers understood that when you are working with collections, right, the frequency of using primitive data types inside the collection is very high, right? You would require to hold different types of data inside it, right? And majority of them would be of this nature, which is primitive data type. So what they thought is, like, why to add a additional complexity for the users? Let's just allow them to add the value as is, and we will take it as a developers, right? Or as part of Java thing, right? It will internally automatically do the all the operations there, right? So that's why this auto boxing would be very helpful. Let me create a list first. Let me create a list of integer. Okay, first of all, see, if I write int here, right, I wanted to have a list of what? I wanted to have list of, let's say, employee ID. If you try to do something like this list, again you have to provide what kind of data it holds. It will hold int, let's say. So let me say employee ID list, and I will do what? New array list int. See, it is complaining, right? Because collections cannot hold primitive data types, so you cannot write this. But but you wanted to have the int values right inside this. So Java developer said, okay, what you have to do here is they form that class, right? Integer class. Just mention that class here, integer and integer, right? And let me just import these classes. Import the classes, right? Now we have imported the classes. Now let's say I have to add the items. How will you add the items? You can do list dot add, right? That is what you will do. You can see what kind of input it is accepting. An input of integer type, that class type, right? It is not showing int here. It is showing integer, which is a class. So what I can do is I can do something like this: new integer 5. I think this is deprecated, so this will not work. As I showed you, what you can do is integer dot value of and you can provide, let's say, 5. Okay, now it is good. And this is what you're doing. You're doing a boxing. You are putting your 5 into this, right, into an integer object, and then placing in the list, because that is how collection works. Collections only accepts objects.
I
But
did not understood AutoBoxing very clearly.
yep, I think let me finish the next part. I think you will understand.
Okay.
See here, employee ID list dot add. You understood this part, right? Why? What is boxing, right, Shelly?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right here, what we're doing is we did
We
we could
declared
have
and we
added
are
5
taking
here.
it
We
out.
could have added 5 here directly, but
Okay.
then 5 would have been int value, right? It's
Yeah.
not integer. So what we have to do is we have to first convert the primitive data type into an object. And how did we do it? By writing integer dot value of and then providing that value, right?
Yes.
So this is how the boxing happened. You placed your primitive data type into a box, and you then added that box inside the collection, right? Because that's an object here. We are good with this, right?
Yeah.
Right, Chelly? Now, what is auto boxing? Auto boxing, you can simply do this, right? This is not complaining, but you have to understand what is internally happening. This is auto boxing. By looking at it, people may think, okay, Akhil is telling something wrong here, because I can just provide 5 here, right, as an int thing, which is a primitive data type. So you may assume that, okay, that then it is I mean, whatever Akhil said about collection, that collections can accept uh, I mean, can only accept object. It is not correct, right? If you can have that doubt, but try to understand here, because of the auto boxing. What does auto boxing does? It would convert this thing into something like this. Okay, and it is doing it internally for you. Okay, and then it would make an entry to this. Okay, but now try to understand the importance of auto boxing. Auto boxing helped you to avoid writing any of this code, and you could use like as you were doing it earlier, right, Shelly? Is it making sense or no?
Yes. But what we did earlier and trying to match the things what happened actually. First we declared the things and then we have passed values to it, right? In short.
See, what I'm saying is, if you would go to the see, first of all, what I'm saying is collections, right? You have to remember the rule: collections only work with objects. Okay, first of all, right? They do not work with primitive data types. Okay, please understand it very clearly. This is the rule with collections, that this is the nature of collection, that they can only work with objects, not with primitive data types. Right now, to solve this problem, Java developers did what? They came up with the solution and said, okay, for every primitive data type which we have in Java, let me create a relevant class for them, right? So they created all those classes for us. And then what now, so this is what they did, right? They did all of this for us. And now, what is boxing, right? So now what we should do is, instead of adding items like this, right? Let's say what I did, I wrote something like this, right? List in teacher uh, id list, let's say, equals to new array list, and then integer array, right? And then these brackets. So what you will do here is id list one dot add. You will do something like this. What you should add here, let's say auto boxing is not an option. Let's say auto boxing is not an option, right? Java developers have not introduced auto boxing for us, so we do not have auto boxing. So can you write 5 here? No, you cannot write. If auto boxing is not there in Java, right, you cannot write this line. Why? Because 5 is not an object. It's a primitive data type of int type, right? And I told you collections only work with objects. So this would have not worked. And how it would have worked? You would have to convert your primitive data type into an object, and you would do it something like this, right? As I showed you, right? So you will have to write something like this, right? So this would have worked and this would have not worked, right, Shelly?
Yeah.
Okay. If auto boxing was not there, But now, since auto boxing is there, what happens is even this piece of line works. But internally, this is doing something like this only. Okay. And this is something which Java does for you. Okay. Why they have done this? Because it provides you some easiness, right? That you don't have to write this line again and again of converting a data type, a primitive data type into an object. So just to avoid that hassle, they have introduced AutoBoxing, and with AutoBoxing, you do not have to write this extra line. You can simply use it as you are adding a primitive data type into a collection. But remember, collections can only hold objects, not primitive data types. Right? I hope now this is clear.
Yeah.
Okay. 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 Let's move ahead. Right. So now I hope it is clear to everyone, right? What is boxing and what is unboxing and what is auto boxing. Okay. So this is boxing here. This is auto boxing, right? And unboxing I've already shown. You can add. You can. This is the unboxing one. Okay. Okay. Uh, as a concept, these are sufficient, right? Let's just see like how once we work with the table format, right, which I was discussing. I think there we will try to touch upon this. So let me just here wrapper demo, which is fine. Let's go to mhm. Let's try to create our data structure, right? So again, going back to this part, let's say we are discussing this part here, right? Okay. So let's take the same format. We have a table which will have I mean four values here, right? So this is like your single row. Okay. This is like your single row. This is row two. This is row three. Now, until now, as per what we have understood now, right? What we could do, I can write a list like this only, right? List and then some data type here, right? Some object name here, right? Let's say I will type string, and then I can do what string list string and let's say name equals to new array list, right? Array list, and then I will add string here. So because of this, how many cells? I mean, what kind of values you could add? Only string, but you would be able to add only this part, right? Or maybe this part, right? Or maybe this part, or maybe this part, right? But no, you will not be able to add everything there, right? See, let me show you here. Let us see Java class collection, complex collection demo. Okay, let's create a magic method here. And here, what we'll do is collection demo. Uh, let me let me open an Excel sheet. I think it would be better so that you can relate to that part. Okay, let's say that I wanted to hold this particular data in my name, uh, gender, let's say address, city, whatever that is. Let's say city name, and what? Let's say okay. Let's say three things, right? Let's say three things. We wanted to hold only three things. Now, let me add here. Let's say Akhil. I will add here male, and then city. Let's say Ghaziabad. Let me write here Ashok. Ashok, let's say, is in New York, and okay, sorry, not here, New York, and here male again, right? And let's say Fizula male, and let's say she's in Canada, okay? And let's add one more entry. Let's add Sally. and I will say female again, male, and let's say she's in UK. Okay, so let's say I wanted to hold this information in a list. Let me all borders and let me mark it that these are columns. Okay, so I want to hold this information in a list. We understood yesterday that if you have to write a list, right? What will you write? You will write something like this list. Okay, list string. Uh, let's say names equals to new analyst string and this. Now tell me if I am writing this line here, if I'm writing the syntax, what kind of values or what I can hold here. A list is something like this. Let's say our list looks like this, right? The vertical part. Now tell me if I use this way of writing my data structure, and if I expect that I can hold all of this data together, then please tell me how it is working, right? Or how it is possible with this structure here. Any vague guess is also fine. Please, I need your inputs on this. Let's have a discussion on this. Anyone, please. Atif, if you can think of something,
Like, can we use for loop here?
can we use?
For loop here, for loop.
Okay, let's say that we use for loop. Then using for loop, what you will do?
Like uh, the first we can use a nested for loop first,
Okay,
but we need to iterate over.
We want to hold that name, gender, city as separate, right? That's what.
right. That is the whole idea. Otherwise, if
We can
someone is
create a
saying
class. We can create a class which holds name, gender, and city, and we
right,
can create a constructor, and we can
right,
maintain those objects in list.
right. Let me just answer someone. I mean, what Atif was thinking, right? Atif, if you were thinking that I can create a list like this, and then I will start reading, let's say, the column one, then and then column two or column three, right? Or maybe let's say I will first read the row one, and then row two, and then row three, and then row four, right? But where are you placing all this? You are going to place this in a single list. And how does a single list look like? Like this, right? So if even if you are able to read, let's say you are able to read through this table and you are able to add the items, how will your items will look like? Wouldn't they look
Yes,
like
got
something like
it.
this?
It will be like we cannot segregate name, gender,
Right?
and city.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying that using list you cannot read this. You can read this, but will you be able to maintain the order in which you intended to have the data in? You see, if you wanted to read this table, you can, but as per the operations of list, how do you add items to the list? To the bottom part of it, right? As soon
Now
as
I
you
can think. Yeah, now I
Mhm,
can think of that solution. Instead of a string, like we
mhm.
can create a individual like custom array. We can create for name, gender, and city, and we can instead of string, we can assign those in that list, right?
Okay, let me write it here. What you're saying? Just a second. So so everyone has to understand, right? If you do something like this is a list which you will form, but this is not what I wanted, right? I wanted to have a list which will have all three columns segregated, as I was seeing in the table there. Okay, so that see, my idea is not just to store the value. I have to use that value, right? How will I know that at which column or which value I have the value of? Right? It's not easy for me now. You see, everything clubbed in. It's like an unstructured data. There you had a structured data. Now you made it as an unstructured data, right? Everything in a single table or a single column, which is not good for anyone, right? So this approach is not good. Okay, not good. Okay. Now what? Now Adi, please tell me what you were saying. The next part. What I should do?
Like we can create one class for name, one class for gender, and one class for city. Okay.
Class.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say class. You create one class for name. Let's say I created this class. Okay. Then I create another class for gender. Okay, and let's say another class I created for what? City. Okay.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, now what?
Now, in the list, instead of string, we can store that particular.
What? Tell me,
Uh,
what should I store? You mean to say I
uh,
should write here name?
no, no. For that class, we can create an object reference and we can store that, right? In
But
that
you
particular
need,
list.
you're right, we can do it, but tell me what should be the data type of the list then?
And
It can hold only one data type, right?
yeah, yes.
And in your approach, you have taken three different classes: name, gender, and city. So
Again, we
there are
need to
three.
create
There
three
are
lists. Three lists.
you need to create three lists then, right? So again,
Yes.
do we really need to do that? If you
Mm,
create three lists, then you are creating lists like this, right? This list, and this list, right? Let's say you're
yeah.
doing this, right? So you're saying what Atif is saying is we should do something like this: list name. Let's say name here, right? Name list equals to new array list, and here let me write here name. I hope everyone understanding, right? Why am I writing name here? This is the name of the class, right? This is the name of the class. So you could provide data types here, right? Data types, you could provide the data types which you already had, or you could create your custom data types, right? By creating classes, right, everyone? And this is your custom data type, right? Name. Every class you create is like a custom data type which you are generating in Java. We have talked about this, and if someone is not remembering, please watch that video again. Okay. So you could do something like this, right? Or you could do, and what he's saying is, let me just finish that part. He's saying I will create three different lists: name, gender, and gender. And I will do city, city, and a city here. Okay, right? And here, right, just for everyone's information, what he will do here inside this, he will create a variable, let's say name variable, and he will, let's say, add a method, or let's say he just had this name variable, right? And then he will access this name variable. He will create the instance of this class, right? Let's say I have a constructor for it. Let's say I have a constructor also here. So the constructor looks like this: string here, right? And they will say this dot name equals to name. Okay, let me try to write in a separate line actually, so that it can be more comprehensible. Public, right, everyone? I hope you're understanding all of this, right? This is what he meant when he said that we will create some classes. Okay, so he will do something like this inside this, and he will do the same exact thing for the gender also and for city also. He will be collecting the names, and what he's saying is that he will generate three lists. But now, Atif, you have a problem now. You have three lists now, right? If you wanted to, let's say I ask you, Atif, please print me the first row of a table. What we will do? You will do something like this. You will then start doing this. Okay, I will do name, okay, name G here. Let's say name G and name C. What you will do is, just to print a single row, what you will do? You will say name L dot get 0. This will give you the first index, the first item in your list name. So what you will get? 0 is what? Akhil, right? You will get this. And then if you wanted to get the gender for that first row, you will do what? You will say name G dot get 0 here, right? Right, Atif? This is what you will have to do,
Yes. Yes.
right? And this is not good. Why this is not good? Because just to retrieve, see, all these three values are connected to one another, right? Mail and Ghaziabad are the values for that user there, right? Which is Akhil, right? And if I have to, again, you can see, right? I ideally what should have happened is that you should have known, I mean, you should have something like this, right? In a single entry like this. What you did was you created an entry like this, right? A list like this. Rather, you try to create a list per column, right? As per his approach, what he did was he created a list per column, which is
Can't we do
the
the other
problem,
way? The other way,
right?
the row way, like nested list.
Right. That is the solution which you have to implement. Okay. And but there are two solutions to it. Okay. I'm coming to that part. So first of all, understand like how your thought process should work. If you see a table like this, right? First of all, make it very clear that if you try to see things per column wise, right, then it is not good. Okay, this is not good because then you will not be able to set up a relation between these three items then, right? And you will have to do something like this, and which will be a very tedious process. What you should do is you should try to think row wise. In that case, what you will do, you will form a list for this entire row, one list. Second row, second list. Third row, third list. Fourth row, fourth list. Okay, this is what you should do. And in that case, what you will do is again you could create. There are two options, right? I told you what you will do. This is your list, right? So let me write it here. Let's say this is list. Again, what kind of data type you have there in the first row? All strings, right? All strings, right, everyone? So what I can do here is, see this. What I will simply do is, I will say list string, all are string, right? And I will say row 1 equals to new array list here, string here. Okay, you will do something like this, and then similarly you will copy all this, control V, row 2, and then you will do row 3, and then you will do what? You will do row 4. So you have 4 lists now. Okay, you have 4 lists now. Now what I can do is I can start thinking about creating a complex data structure, and that complex data structure will look like what? Now assume like you see, right? This is one entry, this is one list, this is second entry, this is second list, this is the third entry, this third list, fourth entry, the fourth list. What I will do now is I will now create a list of a list. What do I mean by that? I mean that I will now create a list which would be looking like something like this. Okay, not all borders, just outside borders. Okay, just a second. No borders and 4 items, right? 4 items here. Let me create outside borders. Okay, so this is a list which I will form. Now inside this, right? Inside this list, I will have to have. I need to, let's see, these 4 lists are done, right? These 4 lists are done. For every row, we did one list, right? One list, one list, one list, one list, right? So in total, we already have 4 lists now. Now I'm saying I need to place all this thing into a single place, right? So what I'm thinking is let me create another list. Let me create another list, and that list would be containing what? This would be containing these lists. Okay. So what it will contain is this list will contain row 1, row 1. This will contain row 2. This will contain row 3, and this will contain row 4. Now this is something like this. You are saying, let me write it here. What you will do? Let's say you are doing something like this. Let's say row is something. Okay. Let's say row is something. Row here, right? A row here, and you will type here, let's say response, right? Whatever you want, and then you will say new array list. Okay, new array list, and you will say row here, right? And you will do something like this. Now, what is your row? Each of your row is what? Each of these things are what? These are in itself this thing, right? These are like list, right? List. This is one list. This is second list. This is third list. This is fourth list, right? This is what you wanted to have. So what you will do here is you're trying to do something like this. Let me grab it. Okay, now try to understand. This is something you wanted to have. List 1, list 2, list 3, which is the third entry in that list, the list 4, which is the fourth entry in that list. Okay, and now this is your, okay, let me just copy this. Okay, this is looks like what? This is like list of list here. Const equals to new array list. Okay, okay, you can do something like this, right? And if you would compare list string, right, this part, this is same as this row, right? What was your row? Row was this, right? This part. And look at this part, list string. So the point here I'm trying to make is, if you have to store a complex data structure which is in a form of a table, what you can do is you can divide your entire table into rows first of all. So how many rows you have? You have 4 rows as of now. What you will do is you will create 4 lists. Okay, and every list I mean for those lists, right? You that single list will represent one row, then row 2, row 3, row 4. So you have 4 lists now, right? And you wanted to stack them together, right? One after another. What you should do is you should form a new list and start adding that list, those lists inside that. So this is termed as what? A list of a list. Okay, you're trying to create a list of a list, and this is how it looks like. Okay, this is how it looks like. In this approach, right, I have not created a class. You can see I did not create a class. I just used the string data type here. But I could enhance this approach, and I could create a class which could represent this row, and from that I could have used it. But we will leave it as of now. Let's first implement this approach. Okay, let's first implement this approach, and I hope you understood like why you cannot do simply like this. If you try to do something like this and try to read this table, this is the output which you will get. You do not want to have this kind of output. You still wanted to have your data arranged like this. Okay, and for that you will have to think out of the box, and you will have to create your data structures in a different way. Okay, let's attempt this. Okay, uh, let's attempt this, and what we'll do is let's first create the first list. I will say list of string. I'm trying to create the list of first string, list of string, and let's say row 1. Okay, row 1 equals to new array list, and I will add here string only. Okay, import class and import class. Let me just copy this and start adding this value, row 3. So I had to have 4 rows, right? Row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. Okay, so I got all the 4 rows. Let me start adding values inside this list individually. Let me write it here. For row 1, if I have to add the first entries in the first list, right, which is representing the first row. So what I will do is I will say set, or not set, what I am doing here. We say add, right? Add, and we wanted to add what entry? We wanted to add the first entry within the first row is what? Akhil, male and Gaziba, right? Let's add this. Okay, I added this entry. I will again say row 1 dot add. So in the single row, I'm adding the second entry, which is what? Male. And then I will add the third entry, row 1 dot add, and I will say Ghaziabad. Okay, I will do something like this. Similarly, over here, right, I will do the same stuff. Let me just copy this as is. Just use row 2 here. Row 2, row 2, row 2. And what was the entry? Ashok, Male, and New York. Ashok, Male, New York, right? So now my second row is done. Let's talk about the third row. So I will say row 3, row 3, oh, row 3, and row 3. And here we have entry for Fibula, Male, and Canada, I believe. right? And then we will have another entry, row 4, row 4, row 4, and we had Siali, and we had in UK, right? Okay, so we have made 4 lists right with us, and this is how it looks like. Now I told you that we need to create a list of lists. I have these lists now. I wanted to create it look like I wanted to have a list which can contain these lists. So what I will do here is I will do something like this list. Let me first create the let's say table here, right? I will say new array list, and I will do something like this, and I have to provide data type here. What data type I should provide here? What is the data type of your rows here? See here. What is the data type of your rows? List string, right? List string and list string, right? So if I add list string inside your
Only string is the data type, right?
no, no. See, whenever you create a variable in Java, how do you do it? See, when you say that, right? When you made that statement that only string is the data type, string is the data type which your collection is holding. Okay, string is the data type which your collection is holding, and you have used a list collection and trying to hold what data type? String there, right? But in case of Java, right? How do you read things? If I have to write here int a, you say what is the data type of a? Int, right? If I have to
Yeah.
write something like this, let's say I have an animal class. What do you say? Animal, and let's say a here, and whatever I do, right? New animal or some. I mean, let's say whatever name I provide, right? Lion. What is the data type of a here? It's animal, right?
Yeah.
It's animal on the same ground, right? You're taking up everything here, right? Whatever you had.
It is.
Okay. So similarly, if you have to talk about this row 4, what is the data type of row 4? It is list of string.
Yeah. Okay.
This is your data type, okay?
Yeah.
But your understanding is correct in that perspective when someone asks you, okay, what kind of data type your list is holding? What kind of data type your list is holding? String, right? But what is the complete data type of your row 4? It is this, okay?
Okay.
Right? Similarly, let me just remove this. You have to provide what data type your list will be holding here. So what you will saying, you will not be saying string. You will be saying the entire thing here, right? Because that is because you wanted to insert these rows, right? You wanted to insert these rows. And what is the data type of them? It is this thing. So you will copy this and place them as it. Okay. And here you're good. If you want, you can leave it here. I think you can add here this part also. This string, right? Now see here what I'll do. Table dot add, and I will do what? I will say row 1, and it will not complain. See, it works, right? And I can keep on adding this table, all the 4 rows. Row 2, row 3, row 4. Okay. So this is how you add, you convert your entire table and you try to put into a list, but this time it would be a list of lists where the nested list is for per rows and the outside list is for that entire table. Your table, right? Every row is like your entry there, right? So this is how it will work like. Okay, let's say I wanted to print the values now. How will I do it? We This would be a very good operation. Let's say we wanted to print the data structure, right? We wanted to print the way we wanted, we envisioned it. So let's see how we'll do it. Okay, uh, let's start with the nested loop. Can I do it with the nested loop? That enhanced for loop. Let me think. Yes, I can do it. Let us try to do it. Okay, we wanted to iterate through the table first, right? The entire table. Okay, so entire table will start from there, which is the outer loop, right? Outer list, right? Which is this list. The name is list here, right? I mean table here. So I provided table here, and what? Okay, what is this table? What is the data type this list is holding? What is the data type which this list is holding? It's not just
List.
string. It is list of string, right?
List.
List of string, right?
List.
So what I will do is list of string. Let's say L here. Let's see if it works or not. It works, right? It works. Now let's start iterating through it. We got the first list, right? How do you iterate through it? You will say L, right? So now this is pointing to what? In the first iteration, try to understand in the first iteration, this is pointing to your row one, right? Row one, everyone, right? And hence for look how it works, right? It starts from the first, whatever the first entry is there, it will start from there. What is the first entry in your table list here? It is a list of string, right? And that is your row one, which is this one, right? Row one here, list of string, and it points to row one here, right? Now I wanted to fetch, so L is pointing to row one. How do you, if I have to print the value for this row one, right? How will you do it? You will do something like, you will do something similar like this, right? Row one dot get 0, and you can, let's say I wanted to print this in a single, like in a single row. How will you do it? You will do something like this: s out row one, right? Then you will say space here maybe. Then you will say row one dot get one here, and then you will say row one dot get two, right? And this will print your entire table like this, right? Or if I put it in a better way, you can see it like this: pipe sign. Let me put some spaces here. Okay, right? This is how you will do it if you have to print this row. Similarly, you will do the same operations for this row. You will say row two, row two, row two, right? And then you will do the same operation here also. This will be for row 3, and row 3. Okay, and then you will do what? You will say row 4 also. This is for row 4, and row 4. Okay, and we are good with this, right? Now we have to do the same thing here also, right? So what I should do here? Let me copy the entire thing.
Can you
What I
scroll
will,
up just once? I just want to see once.
yeah,
In get for first input, for Akhil you give 0, right? 0, 1, 2.
right?
Yeah, everywhere 0, 1, 2.
Yes, yes. Index position starts from 0 only, right?
Yeah, from 0, yes, yes.
Okay.
0, 1, 2, okay. Since we had 3 entries, so but 4 entries, right? 0, 1,
We,
2.
we have 3 entries only, right? See here. This is our table. First, 2, and 3, right? In a single row.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yes.
0 is this, 1 is this, 2 is this, right? And this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
what? This is row 1. This is
Yeah,
row
row
2,
1,
3, and 4, right?
row 3 and row 4, yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll get something out of this. Let me actually print this first. Then maybe let me just print the above output first so that it can be more comprehensible. So you can know that we are able to print something like this. Okay. And let me print the entire table. If I have to print it, I will do here. I will simply say here, uh, name. Okay. Uh, okay. Okay. I don't need to do any of this actually. Just a second. Name, gender, and then what we have, city, right? Let's close this. Let's now print this and see what do we see. Still building. You see, we got a table like this, right? Name, gender, city, Akhil, male, and all that, right? This is fine, right, everyone? Similarly, we wanted to add an entry on this, right? We have already added that entry in this list, which is here, and let's just print them out. How will you do it? You will do something like this. I will simply say L, L, and L. Okay, and let me do one last thing. S out. Let me just segregate it so that you can understand that the output is coming from where. Let's run this. Let's see what do we get. Right? See this. We were able to store our table into a list of lists, right? And how to do it? We just saw that. Okay. See, why we are learning all this is because in case of Selenium, right, you would be required to work with web tables. There could be multiple cases, right? I'm just giving you one case. You will have to work with a web table. In that case, right, let's say I will ask you, okay, please store the entire table into a data structure with you. In that situation, you will have to realize what will you use. You do not have a data structure which can go spread through two-dimensional, right? Except arrays. Arrays can help you, but again, there's a limit on. We already discussed about how arrays will work. Arrays, you will have to be mindful of your number of items you have, so it's not growable. And with arrays, again, there are more issues, right? The insertions and the whatever things we discussed yesterday. So considering it, right, what you will do is you will do something like this, right? Which we did. Yes, Ananya, please.
So Akhil, here we have a case where we have a string type as a data in whole of the sheet, right? But there could be a case, let's say we could have an employee ID which could be numeric.
Mm-hmm.
Will that also be? I mean, will it be a challenging, different process? Will it be, or we can do it in a simple way like we're doing it currently?
Okay. Okay. It's a good question, and that is the next part which I'm going to now. Okay. That is the next part which I'm reaching to now. Okay. Now try to understand this. In our this use case, right? Every field here, right, is of what data type? It is of string. If you would look at it at your table again, this is how your table looks like, right? This is how your table looks like. What is data type of all these entries? These are all string, right? If I give you a table now like this, let's say, let me copy this and put it here. And now I'm asking you, okay, it would be ID, it would be name, and it would be, let's say, character. Okay, character. Okay, let me just a second. We remove this. Let me write here M, female, and female. So these are all characters. And you wanted to have, okay, not character. I have to write gender here, right? But it is implied, right? This is what a character are type. And you have employee ID, let's say, employee ID, and you wanted to have these kind of values there. Now, how to go about this thing? In that case, right, what you will have is, if you use this approach, right, of doing this, what you will do. Now, see this. Let me create a separate, let me copy this class and create a new class there. A collection demo, new name, collection demo 2, okay? Let's say this is a class I will create, and here I have name, ID, and gender, right? But this time the gender would be like a character value. So if I will talk about my first row itself, my first row itself has 3 data types. How will I be able to fit it here? Think about it. I cannot, right? This is a, I mean, this name is a string, ID is a int, and in gender would be a character value. And I am saying my list will only have string. Rather, I should be doing something like this, like string. Then I mean, I need a thing like this string. Then I need integer. Then I need what? Then I need a character. But is it allowed in list? No, you cannot. This is not allowed in list, right? You cannot write something like this. A list will only accept one data type. Okay, so this is not allowed. So now it's a problem. It's a problem. The implementation which we did, right, was good enough if all your entries or data set, right, or the cells or the data in the cells, right, are of the same data type, which is string. Or if everything was int also, then you would have used integer. If everything was of character type, you would have used character. But what will happen in this case, where you have three different data types, right? So I hope you're getting the problem here, right? What is the problem here? If you have to store something, some information like this, you cannot use the solution which we just applied. It cannot work like that. But what will work is the solution which Sudhakar already mentioned. Okay, let me reiterate that part now. The answer to this problem is, what you will do is, now what I will do is, think about this, right? I need to have an entry here which can have all three things. In Java, what is that thing where you can have where you can collect all three different data types, or any, sorry,
Custom, like
custom?
Object class. Object class.
When you say object class, it's not object class, it's like any class you can create, right? You create a class and you can specify
Right.
three
Right.
data types to it, right? Right?
Yes.
You can specify three variables inside it. Let me create it. Let's say these are all employees. Okay, let's say these are all employees. Okay, and what I will do is, I will create a new class. I will create a class of employees. Okay, employee. And what I will say is, okay, the first entry represents first employee, second entry implies second employee, and third employee and the fourth employee. What do we have? What information do we need for an employee? We need three things: name, employee ID, and gender. So what I'll do is, I'll start collecting it. I will say string name. I will say uh, integer integer ID. I will say character. I will say gender here, right? And I will use my constructor. I will create a constructor of this employee class, and whoever wants to call that constructor, right, they will have to specify all three values. I don't want to create all separate methods for it. I will mark them as private. First of all, let me mark it as private, so that no one outside the class can access it. And what I will do is, I will make my constructor to be public. Okay, and inside this constructor, I will accept all three inputs: name, integer, ID, and I will accept character, and I will say gender here. And now I will, whatever value someone would be providing me when making an invocation for my class, right? Whenever they were creating the object of my class, I would accept all three inputs, and I will use those inputs to set these private variable values. This dot ID equals to ID. This dot gender equals to gender, right? And since these are private variables, right, I cannot access them outside, so I need some getters method. Okay, we need some getters method. This is something we discussed about in our concept of encapsulation, right? So we will create some getter methods. So what I will say is public. So the first method is to get the string value. So what I will say is, so return type would be of string, and I will say get names. And what I will return here is, I will return this dot name here. Similarly, I will create another getter method, public. This would be of integer type, because this is something which I want to return from this method. Integer get ID. And this dot ID. And the last method would be what? Public character get gender. Okay, and I will return what? Return this dot gender. Okay, can anyone tell me, do we have a name for this concept? If we create a class like this, where what are we doing? We are just creating a class which is having just variables. We are setting the value of these variables, and we are just getting those. We are just getting those values back. What do we call these classes as? Does anyone know? These are termed as POJO classes. You would have heard the name POJO,
Yeah, project.
right? POJO class, plain old Java object, I believe. That is the full definition of it. Okay. But this is what a POJO class is. This is something I think Atul was mentioning in the Discord channel, that we need to cover it as part of Selenium. Again, there is nothing related to Selenium about this. Okay. This is a concept in Java which you can create. But again, try to understand what are we creating here with this class. We are trying to create a row. We are trying to create a class whose object, whose one object will represent one row. So how many objects will I create for this class if I want to store four, if I want to represent four different rows? Ananya?
Um,
If I'm saying this employee class I have created so that I can represent the a row entry, right? You understand this, right? How, what
yeah.
is this, right? This is an employee, right? This is an
Yeah.
employee. This is an employee one. And for this employee one, what these are the values: name, employee ID, and gender. So what I did was I created a class altogether, a new class which will represent an employee. And as part of the class, I have added three variables which can store all three items: Akhil, one, and main, right? Mail there for gender part. So similarly, I will create four different instances of this class: employee one, employee two, employee three, employee four. Okay.
Okay.
And then I will add these employees into a list. And that's how you achieve your objective. Okay. What I will do here is, let me show you now. Let's go back to this part. We had collection demo 2, right? I do not need any of this. Okay, I do need this one. Let me write it again. So I know I don't need this, right? So string will not work for me. What will work is I want to create. Okay, what will work here?
Employee.
You do not need any of this actually. Let me remove this one. Okay, let me just remove all of this. Okay, let me write it from very scratch. Okay. Okay. System dot out this, right? Now let's say I wanted to create those employees, right? Let me create the first employee. How will you create the instance of that first employee? Let me open the employee class in the right split. See this. You see this now? Employee class. If I have to create the instance of this class, how will I do it? I will do something like this: employee. Let's say E1 equals to new employee, and I have created an overloaded constructor there, right? This part. It's not a default constructor, so I will have to provide these three values, right? So let me provide the values here. The first entry of the row was of the employee was Akhil, one, and male. And let me put in a single quote. Okay, this is not dot, it has to be comma. Okay, you can see I was able to make the entry. How easy it is. Okay, what I'll do, I'll add a second entry, which is about Ashok 2 and M. Ashok 2 and M. And this has to be employee 2. This would be employee 3, presenting the third row, which is Fizula. And this would be ID 3, and gender would be female, right? And let me just grab this and put a new entry, employee 4, E4, and then it would be Sally 4, and this, right? Now compare this to what you were doing earlier. How many lines of code you were writing, right? And now see this, just 4 lines of code you added. You created 4 different instances of the employee. Now the only part is left is that you need to place all these employees in a list. So what you will do, you will try to get a list. let's say employees. You will say what equals to new array list, and what is the data type which I should put here? Shall
Employee
if you
class.
right,
Employee.
right, employee. Let me put it employee here. Okay, and let me put it employee here also. And now what you can do? Employees dot add E1. Okay, employee E2. Similarly, E3 and E4. Now you are able to add all your employees into this list. Now I want to print this value, right? What you can simply do is again use the for loop. Now what is the item you want to iterate to? Employees. And what is the data type of this? What is the data type of the items contained in that list? Atif?
List of employee.
Not list of employee. Employee,
Employee.
right? Employee. That is a list. It's a list of employees. And what is the data type inside that list? It is employee, right?
Employee.
This thing, right? So we will say here employee, and let's give it a variable name as E, right? And what we will do next is we will do just simply this. We will say s out E dot. See here, you getting what? Get name. This is the method. So you can understand in the first thing, right? When this loop starts working, in the first iteration, E would be E1, right? And if you can do something like this on E1, right? You can say E1 dot get name, right? You can do this. Similarly, you can say E1 dot get ID. You can do what? E1 dot get gender, right? You can do all of this. Similarly, you can do here also, right? Let me remove this. So E is representing E1 as of now, so it will say get name, and I will do what? Plus and a pipe sign, and then I will say plus E dot get ID, then a pipe sign, then space, then plus E dot get gender. Okay, and I will just copy. Okay, I don't have to even copy paste. This will just run it for me, right? And this is the code which I have to write, and I will print everything now. Now let's see. Let's run this. Okay, I have mentioned this thing, right? Let me just grab it and place it over on the top. Let's print this and see what do we get.
Why we took it down?
I mean, just for the fun, nothing more. It could be on the top also. It will return the same output. You can see, right? We were able to get the output here. Let me put it up, right? If I put it somewhere up, right? I was thinking maybe I'm printing something in between. So what will happen because of that? Where it went? Oh, sorry. Control Z. Control. Just a second. What I'm doing. Where it went? Let me write it again. Map action to control Y. No. To a control Z instead. Okay, I didn't write what I did. S out. Name, pipe, ID, pipe, and gender. This is what I placed down, right? If you even if you place it top, it will the same output, right? You understand this part, right? There is nothing to explain there. I was thinking maybe I'm printing something in between and it would fill up here, but again, it's the same stuff, right? Right?
Yeah.
Now we understood two approaches, right? If your table contains same data type, right, then you can avoid creating classes, and then you will have to create a list of a list, and that is how you can play with it, right? But in most of the cases, right, you will find that your table will have different data types, and if that is the case, the only possible solution is for every entry of your row, right, for every entry of the rows, right? Like this. Try to create a class which can represent that entire row. Okay. And then create a class for it, and then start creating as many objects you want, as many rows you had. If you had 5 rows, create 5 different instances of it and provide those values. And then create a list of create a list for that class, right? So we had employee class, so we create a list which can hold employees, and we just simply added those instances, right? E1, E2, E3, E4, and then you can just iterate through it to get the values. Any question in this part?
Yeah, Akhil, one question.
Yeah, please, Atul.
So if like we can use, like, suppose if there is a requirement to print like specific, I want to print only name and the gender. Okay, so in that case, instead of like for each loop, we can use that index based loop and we can print that, right? Yeah.
Right. See, it depends on the logic you want to create, right? Then accordingly you will adapt and access the value. You have
Yeah.
access to everything. It depends on your logic. Just that's it, right? If you
Yeah.
wanted to print only name and ID, right? You want to do. Let's remove this gender thing, right? It will print this name and ID only. You getting the point, right?
Yes. Yes.
And if we are very lazy, let's say, right? What I can also do is I can create a method here in the class, and I will add a method saying public void print employee detail. Employee detail. And here what I will do, I'll simply print all of these things here. I will say this dot name plus, let's say, 5 plus dot ID this dot gender, not get gender, let's say gender, and we are good, right? And what I will do here is I don't need to write this line. What I can simply do is I will just say e dot print employee details, right? Let me run this. You will see the same output. Right? See, again, Java is very flexible, right? Whatever you want to do as per your logic, as per your best understanding, you can do it. It's just that you have to understand all the concepts. If you understand every piece of it, right, then there is no stoppage, right? No one can stop you. Okay. And that is where I am trying my best to put everything here, right? So that you can understand things. And I'm trying to show you different flavors. You will realize the importance of it once you get into the formal projects and you start implementing things. There you will realize that this is a very vital information, right? Because people get stuck when they see a very complex data table where they don't know like how to read it, how to store it, and how to retrieve it, right? But using what we learned today, right, we can do everything. We have learned about list here. You can do the same thing for sets, and you can do the same thing for maps, right? No difference there. Okay. And this is what we should do. Right, everyone? Any question on this part? No? Okay. Although I am done for the day, but I'm thinking, I was thinking about maps actually. Let me think. I wanted to bring one perspective on the table, but I'm thinking whether it should be right to put it today or maybe somewhere else.
Just one doubt, Akhil.
Yeah,
You
please.
told me the other way, is it through the generics, the second approach? One you told is a custom objects, right? This way, we'll create the objects, and then like the second approach, like as we did the previous one, right? List, the nested list. For this also we can follow the same approach, right? Something like that.
In the case of employees,
Yeah, same in the case of employees. Like previously we did a nested list, right? For the previous example.
we did something like this. Let me open in Writesplit. Just a second. Complex demo 2. Open in Writesplit and let me close all this. Now, please tell me yes. We created something like this, right? List of list.
Yeah, can't we use something like this? Like there was something generic also, right? in Java?
No, generics is there. This is what the part of generics only, right?
No,
Generics helps. Yeah, please.
using that question mark, I just read about like there was something generics, but I didn't explore much about it when I
See,
was just studying it.
right, right. See, when you see
We can
gen,
we
yeah,
can
yeah,
we can use type of object. We have to every time we have to typecast that into whatever the required field.
right. See, again, what I touched upon generics is I just told you like when you specify the data type of what values you can store in a collection, right? This is one part of generic. This is just, I mean, generics is not just this, right? Generics, when you say about question mark, you see K, V, and all that, right? All those nomenclatures. When you see
Yeah,
a lot of classes, right? So those are all part of generics, right? But I do not want to start the discussion now, although I feel there is not much need on that part. But let's leave it as of now. Okay, I will try to cover it when we cover advanced Java. Otherwise, things will get very complex for people. So I'm purposefully
is it
not going
used?
there.
I mean, is it used like frequently or?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so, right? It depends, right? If a developer, if you're trying to work on a, I don't know, since your profile like involves like on both the sides, right? Developers and the tester. So maybe you're able to see more often those codes, right? Where someone could be using generics part very often in those automation framework or maybe in the dev code. But generally speaking, if you would look at the code base, right, of the automation engineers, you will not find much use of using those question marks or things, right, on this page. Although I will, I will, we will discuss about the possibility of using it and where you would find, I mean, how to use it. Okay, we will discuss that. But as of now, I don't want to go into that direction because it will unnecessarily confuse a lot of people.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I got it. Yeah.
so we will talk about it. Okay, I'll tell you like how it can be done, right? Or if I can just for your understanding, right? Because even I need to do some of the hands-on because I myself don't use much generic part. But if I can show you, okay, no, I don't think I can show you right now.
No, I think it'll be more confusing then.
Right. So I'll cover it. Right. I'll try to
That,
explain you what you were asking. Right. I got your point, but I will explain. I will try to cover it maybe at some other time, not today. Okay.
yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
Okay. So okay. Again, Ananya, I think you wanted to say something. You did not send a good emoji there.
I'm grasping and absorbing the stuff that we discussed today. Like, nothing more.
See, again, right? This is almost, we are almost reaching the end of our collection part, right? And if people, right, are following us till this part, right? I'm assuming, let's say not 100% is going there, but at least even 5-10% is also going now. This will also initiate some thought process here, right? Then you will see the problem here is like I mean, whenever we start something new, right? Or let's talk take about our case only, right? We are trying to be estates, we're trying to be automation engineers. If you sit with people who have good experience in automation engineering, or let's say developers or estates, right, who are already working on automation projects for a good amount of years, right? If you sit with them, right, you would realize that if you put a problem to them, right, they would start doing something like this. But being a fresher or being someone who has not looked into a complex part of it, you will never realize that there is something of this sort, right? Right, your life, I mean, there is something of this nature which exists, right? You can only realize it when you once you start working on it. But even on your day one, right, if you just see the pattern and if you just try to understand the problem also, right, what is the problem, then it will initiate some thought here, and then you can start thinking about it. And once you start thinking about it, you will try to understand the logic there, right, what is happening. And all of this discussion will come back, right, from that flash memory, I think, to the, I mean, to the main memory, right? I think if I'm using the right terms. So so that is how it is, right? But again, the only how it will all benefit, right, if you go back and practice. Just listening will not help. I mean, I'm not specifically saying to you, I'm saying it to everyone. Okay, please try to create some data structures, try to find a web table which you may find somewhere, right? if you know Selenium, right, use Selenium to read web tables and try to store it in a data structure like this. Create classes, right? Create a class which represents your row of that web table. Store it into a class and then create a list or a map where you can store all of this. Then you will understand, and that is the proper use of collections, right? Which we should be knowing. Okay, I think I do not have anything else. Let's stop here today, right? And tomorrow, the last part, right? Okay, okay, for tomorrow, right? Just one last thing, right? See here. Okay, see here. If I ask someone, right? If I have a list like this, let's say, I ask here. I have a list of names, okay, and I am adding the name of the people here which are part of this bootcamp. Say Ali, Ananya, let's say Atif, right? I added all the other names here, right? And now I ask you, can you please sort this name, right, and place it through A to Z, right, alphabetical order. You may not be knowing as of now, but maybe let's say that you found the trick and you're able to sort it. So how will you print it? You will say Ananya. I think A N comes first, right? Ananya, then Atif, and then Sally, right? You will write something like this, and this is how your sorting will look like, right? This is simple because this is a single entry here, right? A single entry here. Although you need to know the methods which will help you to achieve this. We have not covered it. Okay, we will cover it tomorrow. But this seems very similar, right? I mean, very simple. You have a list here which is all string and just one entry, and if I ask you to sort it, you will sort it like this, right? And there is a method which you can use. What if I ask you, if you have a table like this, name, ID, and gender, and if I tell you, please sort the entries here. This is row 1, row 2, and row 3. Okay, again Sally 1, and let's say 4. Okay, and let's say female, right? And we have Ananya, we have ID to be 2, and we have male, and Atif, we have 5, and we have male here, right? Now I ask you, please sort this table. Now you should have a question, okay? Okay, you asked me to sort it, but on what basis I should sort? I should sort this. There I had only one column, so I knew that the data type of all the entries here are same, right? String. Here, first of all, it is not single column, it is 3 columns: name, ID, gender. So on what basis I should sort? You should ask me first that question, right? So you need to know, like Akhil, you will say, Akhil, I can see there are multiple ways to sort. Please tell me what technique I should use. Should I use on the basis of name column? And that too, if you tell me that, then please tell me in which order I should sort. I should sort in the ascending order or descending order. Okay. The other option is use ID and then use ascending order or descending order. Then I have gender. Again, should I sort it in ascending order or descending order? Right? In this case, it was simple. Either it was ascending or descending. Right? But here you have to also decide on which basis you will sort it. Right? And let's say you have these options and you also wanted to have a default option. Let's say no one specifies, okay, go and sort it with ID, but someone says just go and sort it. Then you need a default approach also. That okay, if someone does not give me that input on what basis I should sort, then also I need to sort it. So then that logic will depend on you, right? Whatever logic you would write, you have written, it will sort on that basis. Let's say you mentioned that okay, if someone does not give me an approach, I will use ID, ascending or descending, right? Whatever that is, I'll do that. Okay. So this is something which we'll talk about tomorrow. How to do all of this. Okay. And what are the classes and everything which we need to know to achieve this? Let me tell you upfront, there are concepts of comparable and comparator, which we should be knowing. Okay. We will be using the classes we will be using some of the classes which we have not talked about from the collection framework, which is arrays and collections. If you remember, these are classes which are there in your collection framework. So we have not used them till now, and we will use it tomorrow. So these all 4 things, right? And as part of this only, we will be doing the sorting part. Okay, and this would be the last discussion which we'll be having for Java. Okay, and then we will, and Friday is off, Saturday is off, Sunday is off. We will resume our discussion for Monday, and for Monday we have to start our web automation journey. Okay, so please let's start the discussion tomorrow, and then we will see how to achieve all of this.
Will
Okay,
there be
and
an
then,
assignment?
sorry.
Will there be an assignment?
Yes, there will be. I will be providing on Friday. It's off for me, so I will get some time to review the assignments which you have already submitted and also provide a new assignment. And this assignment would be based on the collection only, nothing else.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Right, right. I will provide that. I will provide that. Okay, okay, everyone. So I think we are good for today. Let's meet tomorrow, and these are the topics which we are going to discuss tomorrow. Okay. Good night. Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Take care.